Hey everyone, it's Alexander, the real Mr. Robinson. Welcome to the channel. This is my review for 1963's Cleopatra, which is the latest classic Hollywood film that I've seen for the first time ever since 2020 happened. Let's just put it that way. This is one of those classic Hollywood films that is both famous and infamous for a multitude of reasons. Some people say it's an absolute masterpiece and one of the most iconic movies of the 60s. And then others claim that it's just a colossal disaster of a film. And everyone can agree, whether you like the movie or not, it was not that big of a financial success. I mean, it's complicated. The movie pretty much revolves around the Queen of Egypt, Cleopatra, and her relationship with the Roman Empire. Whether it's with her on and off relationship with Julius Caesar, played by Rex Harrison, while also having to deal with the Roman Empire's conquest for power soon after the Ides of March takes place. So my experience watching this movie for the first time was really more of a journey than anything. And I mean that in probably the best and worst ways possible. The way I've been watching a lot of these old classic movies for the first time is through Turner Classic Movies. And I can't remember what movie I was watching on the channel, but it might have been North by Northwest. But there was a little banner that said that they were going to be showing Cleopatra later on, and I thought, you know what, I'll give it a shot. It's a movie that is definitely well known in many regards, so I'll watch it. I mean, there's nothing better to do this year, so why not? And the impression I got from this movie is that it is the 1960s equivalent of a lot of big budget, overblown, overly long blockbusters, where the money is truly there in terms of its spectacle. The things that Cleopatra gets right are all in its visual style, from the cinematography, the production design, the costumes. This movie is just beautiful to look at. There's the sequence when Cleopatra arrives to Rome, and just the amount of dancers that they brought in for the sequence, the costumes they're wearing, these giant sets that they not only constructed, but also had to make mobile for this whole sequence. It's like truly impressive. And again, this is 1963. CGI technology would not be prominent in Hollywood for another 30 years. So the fact that a lot of this was done practically is just truly jaw-dropping. And that's the big thing of the movie that I will not take away at all, is that it is a gorgeous looking movie. All the categories that I mentioned, the production design, the cinematography, and the costumes, all of them earned Cleopatra Oscars, including an Oscar for Best Special Effects. And rightfully so, because you could tell where they spent all their money on this movie. And even the acting's pretty good. With Elizabeth Taylor as Cleopatra, Elizabeth Taylor is one of those iconic classic Hollywood actresses. I mean, she is talented, she is gorgeous, and while she is very good in the movie, and I'm not going to take away her performance, there is something about watching her play an Egyptian that just doesn't feel right. I understand that it's a different time. The 60s, like, it's a totally different time for Hollywood, and this is an aspect that was not frowned upon as much as it is right now. And given that this movie is as expensive as it was, I imagine 20th Century Fox was not going to try to find an unknown Egyptian actress to play Cleopatra, so they needed a big name to attract people to come see this movie. And again, despite how I feel about the fact that this is pretty much another whitewashing role, Elizabeth Taylor is admittedly good. And her chemistry with Rex Harrison, who plays Julius Caesar, is pretty good as well. And Rex Harrison is just good even when he's not on screen with Elizabeth Taylor. The technical aspects of this movie and the performances are all very top-notch and well done, but the movie's biggest flaws are in two areas. The first is honestly the script. The script kind of mumbles a lot, and because it's such a grand-scale epic, you kind of get lost in what's going on, and some scenes drag on for too long, which is another problem with this movie, and why at the beginning of this review I said watching this for the first time was like a journey. This movie is 3 hours and 12 minutes. I mean, there are very few movies, I've said this on record several times, but there are very few movies that I think warrant being over 3 hours long. And with this movie here, the thing that makes it not worth the 3 hour plus runtime is the fact that the script is kind of messy. And the movie also feels like it's two movies on its own. I mean, given that this movie is over 3 hours, there was an intermission. And the second half of this movie, right after the intermission, feels like the sequel that should have come out just a year later. Kind of like that old trend in the last decade where studios decide to take one book and just split it into 2 movies. But I do kind of wonder what this movie's impact would have been if it was split into 2 movies, because while this movie was one of the bigger moneymakers of 1963, it lost 20th Century Fox a lot of money and also put them on the verge of bankruptcy. I mean, they didn't go bankrupt, but they had to sell off a lot of their studio because of the financial loss of Cleopatra. So for those of you who are in Century City, living in your overpriced apartments right across the street from 20th Century Studios, you have Cleopatra to thank for those apartments. There's not much else to say about this movie. I don't dislike this movie by all means, because again, I have to give credit to all of the technical aspects. Every little penny that this movie spent on its production design, special effects, costumes, and cinematography is well earned. The problem is that the script is kind of messy, and because it's a 3-hour-plus movie, it's really hard to want to go back and really rewatch it. So this is kind of tough to rate because I want to say that it's good because of the technical aspects, but I honestly don't know if I can truly recommend this movie. I would say watch at your own risk, but in a more positive light. If you really have a desire to watch this movie, then I would say go watch it because it is an important part of Hollywood history, and especially with the history of 20th Century Fox. But I don't think it's a movie that's really worth rewatching. I mean, if you want to, you could treat this like a 2-part movie, where once the intermission takes place, you just stop right there and then continue the rest of the movie the next day. That would be the best thing to do if that 3-hour-plus runtime intimidates you. And there you go, that's my review for Cleopatra. And now I want to know what you guys think about the movie. If you've seen it, what did you think? Whatever the case may be, let me know in the comments below. And until next time, I hope you enjoyed this review. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, give this video a like, leave a comment, support my Patreon page, follow me on social media, and until then, this is the real Mr. Robinson telling you there's only one.